What we want to do just quickly is to welcome back Diapollo Peku. We want to reflect back to 2007, some of the resolutions, and look at whether they've been fully implemented now, being 2012. Some of the resolutions, you were there in 2007. Tell us about a few of the key resolutions, and has the ANC, NEC, and the guys that are being re-elected, and some of them who've left, have they achieved what they were mandated to do from 2007?
It was quite a considerable wish list, and I think the praxis of the discussion was through the eye of the needle. That's been a contested internal debate, and I think it's sought to seek expression through different policy frameworks, such as the second transition discussion paper, and then of course now in terms of industrial and economic policy, there's the attempt to then actualize the notions of inequality, poverty, and jobless growth. That is an ongoing struggle, and I think that the level of policy coherence or lack of coherence is something that can certainly be improved upon. Education and healthcare, there were conversations around, for example, the national health insurance policy in this country, national health insurance plan, which is to really extend a level of free and qualitative healthcare to a larger number of the populace. Again, that's a conversation that is in limbo, mainly because I think of the cost and the planning that it takes. When you look at a situation where, for example, in the UK, they've had subsidized healthcare for a long time, it takes meticulous administrative design in order to implement that, and it's a longitudinal, long-term plan. Some of the internal issues, I think, certainly have been quite interesting, and for example it talks here about the criteria for candidates to be deployed to senior positions. I think as citizens we are interested to hear, because the notion of deployment and cadreship deployment and the way that it's been quite inimical in certain respects to the level of service delivery and the capacity, the state capacity to deliver qualitatively is highly questionable, and patronage, etc., etc. And all it says here is delivery unknown. So I think in terms of a status report on the issues that are very important, we don't have we don't have measurable and achievable goals that have been listed. We're merely told often.
Who holds the ANC accountable, the NEC, and that kind of thing? Who holds them accountable? Is there, from your understanding, in the branches, a vibrant conversation to say, okay, in 2007, this is what we said. We're going now to Mangaung, it's 2012. Let us look at what has been done and then give feedback. So the president does a political report, the secretary general does an organizational report, but is there a delegate report to say, you guys didn't achieve this and therefore?
I think that also speaks to the culture of rigorous self-introspection and the extent to which ideas are able to flourish and to able to be given space and ventilate within the party and at branch level. I think anybody who's been involved in politics at some point will understand the notion that branch politics is supposed to build a notion of political education and the ability to self-interrogate constantly. Now, I think that we've been quagmired over the past few years. It seems as an observer that the ANC has been quagmired by a level of cadreship that is a bit more fixated with personalities and the wrangling. And I think that although there are qualitative debates and instruments and papers that have been produced, I'm not sure the extent to which that these have seeped out as part of the culture of debate throughout the party. And certainly I will be interested to hear whether there's a reflection of this interrogation and rigorous self-introspection as we move into the plenaries.
Okay, thank you very much, Diapollo. Let's leave it at that. We'll talk to you a little bit later on. Diapollo Peku is a political analyst giving us insight about reflecting on what has been achieved by the outgoing NEC. Of course, 295 names put forth for the incoming NEC. The elections will get underway today, and then we will let you know what the result is tomorrow. And Gwede Mantashe, the Secretary General, said that would be the case. So we are going to be shortly joined by Keith Khoza from ANC TV. We want to talk about ANC TV, where is it broadcasting to, and that kind of stuff. Just looking at some of the messages we're getting on Twitter. I'm disturbed by the way things are going in the ANC, and for the first time in 2014, I'm really worried that stand down. _Don Mangaung has spoken now. It's time to put the words of unity in action and stop leaving the decay off. And I didn't see the rest of it there. Let's welcome Keith Khoza to talk to us a little bit about ANC TV. Keith, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Voyo.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us about ANC TV. What is this initiative?
Well, the ANC TV is a new platform that we're introducing electronically that consolidates our social media provisions that we want to use continuously as part of our unmediated communication. We've set up a studio here. We've got people that are running that studio professionally. We conduct our own interviews.
Who do you interview?
Well, we have interviewed people like Paulo Jordan, Tony Yengeni, Spiwe Nyanda, Zweli Mkhize. So we will be interviewing the new leadership that has been elected, and we stream that live through YouTube, through our Facebook account and Twitter, and that.
So that's where people can get it.
Yes, people can get it online, and
So where do you log on to?
well, it's basically premised on my ANC, and then it gives different platforms on the offering, and then we want to take this forward and make it a permanent element of our communication arsenal.
Is it myanc.org?
My ANC, it should be myanc.com.
Okay, myanc.com. So you go there, and then from there, what will you find? I'm just trying to log on and see.
It should give you the options of what is offered on that page, and then you can then decide what you want to do. Because we now have opened a YouTube account, we have broadened the use of Twitter account and our Facebook account, and we've brought in a new team of people that are supporting these initiatives.
Okay. All right. Is it my ANC or my underscore ANC or whatever?
I just need to verify whether it's my underscore ANC. But if you go to our Facebook normal website, it will guide you to that site.
Okay, I was just talking now to Diepol, and we're just talking about the process in terms of the branches and the work that is done. So is there a system in the branches where the ANC members in the branches would say, these were the resolutions done in 2007? Now, as we prepare to go to Mangaung, has the leadership delivered on these resolutions so that there's then feedback to the leadership about achievement of resolutions or not, or failure to achieve those resolutions?
It's now the second year that the ANC has introduced a monitoring and evaluation unit at Luthuli House, and that unit has been working with provincial and local government and provincial and local structures of the ANC to look at the extent to which we are succeeding to implement resolutions of the organization, and also how these are streamlined into government programs and the impact they are achieving. This, we hope, will assist in future when we're talking about policy reviews and assessments, that will look at the impact as the ANC from a branch level, and we then need to cascade all these structures. We have it nationally, we have to do that provincially, regionally, and locally.
This is the monitoring and evaluation.
Yes, and the idea is to strengthen the hand of the ANC in terms of its operations as an organization, but also in terms of its role as a governing party.
So just in the branches, in the build-up to this, the discussion is about the policies that have been put forth, strategy and tactics and that kind of thing. There's not a reflection to 2007 to say, this is what we agreed to, and then give back to the feedback to the party, perhaps in a closed plenary session, to say, we as branches, this is our view and this is what stands.
Well, if you look at the draft documents when we started the policy discussions, they capture the resolutions that were captured. They also give an assessment of progress made in implementing those resolutions broadly, and then it says, therefore, the following gaps have been identified, or these policies are not achieving the impact that we want to achieve. When it goes to the branches, it gives that background for branches as a starting point to look at policies and to start those discussions. Now, when you go forward, we want to empower the branch of the ANC to be able to do that in terms of its function as a branch in relation to local government and other civic structures, and how they start looking at originating policy options that will be cascaded upwards to be included in all future documents.
From the bottom up. Okay, talking about ANC TV, members of the public, can they make inputs into ANC TV and say, this is the content I'm thinking about, this is what I'd like to see?
We want to make it interactive. We're going to ask for input from the public in terms of new ideas and how we can improve it, and also how we can engage with them on an ongoing process and they can identify issues that we need to respond to. Because if you don't do that, it will be another monologue arrangement. We want a discussion with the public.
Often people ask us, so what's the viewership of Morning Live? What has been your viewership at ANC TV?
We started day before yesterday. We started streaming out a few interviews and so on. And the team is busy looking at, between day before yesterday and yesterday, how many people have logged in and viewed what we're presenting. We know that on the Twitter side, we're doing well. Day before yesterday, we're trending quite a lot after the nominations and so on. And we also want to monitor all these channels and come up with a comprehensive assessment of the viewership on these unmediated levels.
All right. Is it an exciting initiative for you? Is it taking the ANC forward in any way?
It is, because in terms of communication channels now, social media, no organization can function without it. It's immediate, it reaches you wherever you are, and you can respond immediately to what you see. And so we are certainly going to mainstream that as part of our communication in the ANC.
Okay, so it's going to be grown and developed going forward.
It is. We're going to grow capacity in that direction.
All right. Keith Khoza, thank you very much. Keith Khoza is running ANC TV, joining us this morning, talking a little bit about what's happening there and some of the work that they've done over the last while. We've shown you some of the footage there. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Ayanda Dlodlo. She is a Deputy Minister in Public Service and Administration, but also has been nominated again to serve on the NEC of the ANC. Stay tuned. Well, I must tell you, we got here on Saturday. We've been here since then. Sunday morning, we started broadcasting, bringing you the latest from here in Mangaung. I can confirm on the weather front, the weather hasn't changed. Not too long from now. It's very hot. What has been hot as well are debates and deliberations about a variety of issues and how certain things are characterized. There's an issue around the characterization of the leadership nominations for the top six as slates. It's been described as the Zuma slate, as the Motlanthe slate. Well, let's talk talk a little bit about that. Joining us is a member of the NEC who's been nominated again to serve there. She's also Deputy Minister in Public Service and Administration. Ayanda Dlotwa, good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you
Very much for joining us this morning. So the Zuma slate won yesterday.
I don't think there was a Zuma slate, because if you notice, for instance, the Secretary General, Comrade Kweto Mantashe, was on many lists. Comrade Jesse Duarte was not contested. So from that perspective, I do not see a slate. Because if there was a slate, she would have been contested. Kweto Mantashe would not have appeared in many lists. So for my part, the team that is with Jacob Zuma as officials now was not nominated on a slate.
Okay. Let's explore this a little bit more. So someone like Tokyo Sexwale, for instance, was not on many lists. He was on the one, what is characterized as a slate. Matthew Posa was on the one side, Fikile Mbalula and that kind of thing. So, I mean, is the term slate a problematic term?
We've always said, I mean, after Polokwane, the ANC has always said that the slate way of doing things is not what we would want to see in the ANC, because it creates a bit of problems. It shortchanges us in terms of the kind of people that we'd like to see in leadership positions. But again, I must emphasize that in this leadership team that has been elected, for me, it doesn't depict a slate. As I said, you have Jesse Duarte, who was uncontested, and a lot of people had been talking about her. But you also have Kweto Mantashe, who also appeared in many if you want to call it slates, maybe, but Kweto Mantashe was nominated by not just the team that would have nominated Jacob Zuma, for instance. Yeah.
When you say it deprives the ANC of leadership, is this not an ANC conversation? Is this not a conversation within the ANC to say, how do we do things going forward? How do we ensure that we have access as the ANC, as the party, to the best possible leadership? Because in many ways, perhaps the branding comes from the way the ANC itself has been functioning from Polokwane and beyond.
I'm not sure what you mean that it's in the branding in the way that it has been functioning, because from the first NEC that I attended after Polokwane, the continuous message by President Jacob Zuma was that of unity. We preached unity from day one. Certain things fell along the wayside. There were acts of ill discipline in certain instances, but it was something that we had always decried as the leadership of the African National Congress. And I think even at branch level in provinces, the issue of discipline has always been a problem that we have decried as a leadership.
So how were the candidates then sold to the branches? Was it a question of, you can nominate anybody? Or was it a question of, this is a grouping that we think represents what potentially is best within the ANC right now. And then other people came in and said, this is a grouping that we think could. So how was it sold in the branches? How was it communicated?
For us who oversaw some of the processes leading up to the PGMs, it was very clear that you had to use certain documents that would guide the process. And one of those documents was Through the Eye of the Needle. Now, Through the Eye of the Needle informs members of the ANC as to what it is that you need to look at when you decide on a leadership core that you would want to elect. Nobody in any of the PGMs that I attended, nobody went about with a list to say, these are the people that we're looking at. People thought of people that they thought would be able to lead the ANC, that would be able to unite the ANC, but that would also be able to revive the image of the ANC in the eyes of the public.
Let's talk about discipline. You talked about matters of ill discipline that came through as time went by. Just talk to us about discipline within the ANC right now.
I think we've seen people characterizing themselves outside the value system of the African National Congress and also outside the unwritten codes and traditions of the African National Congress. From where some of us come from, Voyo, you would never speak ill of authority, which means your leadership. Platforms are created in the ANC where you would be able to criticize, because criticism is what is welcomed in the African National Congress. It's part of the DNA of the ANC, criticism and self-criticism. Now, people had platforms, those that felt that the leadership was weak. They had the platform, which was the NEC, to raise those matters. Those who were members of the African National Congress's NEC. Those that belonged to branches had branch meetings where they could criticize the leadership to no end, for that matter. But people then decided to define themselves outside the collective of the African National Congress and went out publicly criticizing a leadership that they were a part of, and never brought those criticisms into structures and platforms that are created by the African National Congress. For me, that in itself is just gross discipline. You cannot disrespect the African National Congress and its leadership by going out and criticizing what you could not criticize internally. I'm not saying that we shouldn't criticize one another. It's part of who we are as the African National Congress. But you need to choose your platform very well.
So the problem is criticizing not inside the ANC. If you criticize outside of the ANC, that's the issue.
You can't be part of the leadership core and go out and criticize a leadership core that you are a part of when you couldn't even raise those issues in the NEC, for instance.
Is that an expression of frustration, though? That, sometimes you are talking about these issues, you are not heard. So maybe it makes sense to break ranks. And once you've broken ranks, maybe the sense begins to emerge that, well, there's a voice that's saying something else. Let's listen a little bit.
Breaking rank for me, Vuyo, is a problem. It is ill discipline. I have not heard anybody who has raised matters of frustration in leadership in the NEC that has been put down, that has been stopped from talking about whatever it is that they thought was a problem with the leadership. So I still cannot understand why people would have gone out into the public and laid bare the problems that they think are existing in the ANC.
Would you say the ANC is a more disciplined organization now? There's more discipline within the ANC now?
Well, because we've taken disciplinary measures against people that thought were above the ANC, that has brought some bit of confidence in our people and also within our membership that at least things do happen, that discipline is part of what any member of the ANC is supposed to live by, and that we cannot tolerate that. But as long as we do not act decisively, on time and consistently on discipline, the impression that we give to the general public is that we are tolerant of deviant behavior.
Okay. Let me ask you the question in a different way. There has been a view where people have said, look, the ANC seems to be dealing with things, with settling political scores, as opposed to disciplining members. In that, perhaps there's also where people don't perform, and they, in a way, bring the ANC into disrepute, whether local government, provincial government, so on. That kind of discipline is not effected. So how do you deal with that?
Well, that's some of the things that we have been discussing, for instance, in the Organizational Renewal and Strategy and Tactics Commissions yesterday and day before yesterday. Discipline is not about people doing things within the African National Congress and bringing the ANC into disrepute in the fashion that you would have seen in the past. But you're correct to say that if you engage in corrupt activity, that brings the organization into disrepute.
You know what I want to do? I want to give you a chance to respond in a little bit more detail, but we also must take the news headlines. So if you let me, we'll take the news headlines and then we'll come back and we'll hear from you in a little bit more about discipline within the ANC. Tweet at Mbuli Vuyo. News headlines at Leanne Manners in Johannesburg. Good morning.
Thanks very much, Vuyo. Well, delegates at the ANC's elective conference in Mangaung will today be voting for the members of the National Executive Committee. Nominations from the floor ended early last night. A total of 295 people were nominated, but only 80 will make it to the final list. Half of them have to be women. The vote for NEC members follows yesterday's re-election of party president Jacob Zuma. He will go to the 2014 polls with Cyril Ramaphosa as his deputy. Zuma urged unity and mutual respect within party ranks. 4 far right-wingers will return to court on the 8th of January for a bail application. They face charges of high treason after appearing in the Bloemfontein Regional Court yesterday. The court heard plans to bomb the ANC's Mangaung conference and execute the president as well as cabinet ministers. It was to have coincided with the 16th of December when the Battle of Blood River took place. More arrests are expected. The state will oppose bail for the accused. Police witness Brigadier Zephaniah Mkhwanazi is expected to be cross-examined again today at the Marikana Commission of Inquiry hearing in Rustenburg. Mkhwanazi has spent several days in the witness stand to testify about issues around police operational plans and the deployment of specialized units. The commission is probing events that led to the death of more than 40 people during violent strikes by Lonmin mine workers in August. A full bench of judges in the Western Cape High Court are expected to make a ruling on an urgent application by 18 schools in the province. The schools want the court to set aside a decision by the Provincial Education Department to close them down by year end. The department says dwindling pupil numbers and underperformance forced the move. But counsel for the schools argued that the consultation process that led to the decision was flawed. 2 days have been set aside for the application. Sudan and South Sudan have agreed to pool their troops from disputed border areas and create a safe demilitarized zone. The breakthrough was announced by African Union mediator Thabo Mbeki. He was speaking at a security debrief held in Ethiopia. The countries came close to all-out war in April after troops clashed along their shared border in the worst violence since South Sudan declared independence from Sudan last year. A primary school in Newtown, Connecticut was put on lockdown on the first day back at school for most of the town's children since a gunman killed 20 children and 6 adults in a shooting rampage at another school. The lockdown came as educators and officials across the country grappled with how to respond to the shooting. The scene of the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary remained cordoned off as police investigations continue. Other schools reopened with grief counsellors and police present. Funerals have also continued for victims of last week's gun massacre. Meanwhile, the National Rifle Association has said it is shocked, saddened and heartbroken over the shooting. Well, that's basically it from the weather team from the news team this morning. I suppose if that was the weather, it would be rather gloomy, wouldn't it, all around? All right, we are going to give you a weather report in a short while. After that, we'll go back to Vuyo, talking about discipline within the ANC. Quite an interesting conversation that's happening. Andile, over to you first, though.
Thanks very much to you, Leanne. We talked about temperatures getting hot west of the country. We also have a few watches, especially over the Vredendal region. Temperatures starting into the high teens there, extending into the central interior and into the early 20s for the southeastern coastline. And that means your temperatures later on this afternoon will continue shooting up into the high 30s along the southeastern interior, 38 in Upington, 27 in Cape Town, and 28 for Johannesburg and Vereeniging, 29 in Polokwane. Also seeing the mid-30s and high 30s along the southeastern interior there. So that means we are going to see those temperatures getting hot with a rainfall expected up to 60% chances of scattered thunder showers. And the trend will continue for most of tomorrow, where it shifts focus into the Midlands of KwaZulu-Natal and the eastern parts of the Eastern Cape. Temperatures are expected to be quite cool there in the Free State. Places like Bethlehem will see those temperatures dropping as we head into the weekend. But otherwise, we are going to continue seeing up to a 30% chance of isolated showers in the Kimberley area, Bloemfontein, as well as those temperatures are expected to remain pretty warm and pleasant, especially spreading towards the southwestern coastline with wind speeds at 45 kilometers per hour from a southeasterly direction. By Friday, we're being introduced to yet another chance of rainfall there. 30% chance is expected. Temperatures quite pleasant and warm for most of the Gauteng province and Limpopo. Places in the lowveld of Mpumalanga as well are expected to be very hot, partly cloudy and hot though for the southern and southeastern coastline, with very warm and sunny conditions expected in the Cape Town region. Well, that's all from me for now. To stay tuned for the final weather.
Thank you very much, Andile. Let's go back to Vuyo now, to Bloemfontein, talking about that topic of discipline within the ruling party. Vuyo, let's continue. It's over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Leanne. Indeed, focusing on this subject of discipline, and I did say that I'd give Ayanda an opportunity fully to expand on this issue. We had contextualized it in this way. On the one side, some have argued the discipline issue was a settling of political scores, and yet when people don't perform within the ANC and bring the name of the ANC into disrepute, this discipline issue doesn't arise. You were saying
that issue, Vuyo, came up very strongly in the policy conference, if you would remember. That most delegates at the policy conference raised that matter to say, for those people who, for instance, engage in corrupt activity, for those that do not perform well, that bring all of those things then would bring the ANC into disrepute as a party that is unable to deliver on the aspirations of the people, but also on its own manifesto. Now, people were saying that discipline must be applied across the board, and we need to be very clear what it is that brings the ANC into disrepute. If you do not live up to the expectations of the party itself, that in itself, for me and for the comrades who were at the policy conference, constitutes ill discipline. Now, we do not settle political scores. And I'm a member of the disciplinary committee, by the way. I have not come across a situation where a decision was taken because we're settling political scores. And I'm sure people are talking about the ANC Youth League leadership when they say those people were charged as members of the African National Congress. And other people are saying, well, it was the Youth League that was charged by the ANC. It's not true. People were charged. Nobody called any of the people that were on the National Disciplinary Committee to say a particular outcome is expected out of that process. We looked at the merits, the facts on the table. We took a decision based on what was presented to us, both by the presenter, which was on the part of the ANC, and also what was said by the comrades that were in the disciplinary hearing themselves.
Let's talk and look back at the issues that came out of Polokwane resolutions and where we are now in Mangaung in 2012. Would you say the NEC has been successful in delivering on Polokwane resolutions and the implementation thereof?
On some of them, Vuyo, we still have a lot to do. But on most of what we were mandated to deliver on as the NEC, we have done the best that we could. We've delivered on a lot of them. One of them, for instance, I come from MK. I'm a former Secretary General of MKMVA. And one of the things that was raised very sharply by former members of Umkhonto weSizwe was the establishment of a ministry that looks into the plight of military veterans. That was established. The Women's Ministry was established. We delineated some of the tasks of government and created new departments and new ministries so that we could focus on the work of those ministries and departments. So a lot of things that we said we would do have been done, but there is still a lot of work for the ANC to do.
All right. Thank you very much. Ayanda Lodlo has been nominated again to serve on the NEC of the ANC. Have you accepted that nomination?
Yes, I have accepted. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. You're watching Morning Live on SABC2. A very good morning to you. Let's take a break. When we return, we unleash Ralph Mateka. Stay tuned.
It's my home.
I've just heard a bird. I don't know what is the name of the bird. I think you may have just heard this sound. I remember when I was growing up in Pimville in Soweto, the suburbs were known as Mkhalanyoni. That's where you could hear the birds singing. You're watching Morning Live and our broadcast here in Mangaung. Thank you very much for joining us. Ralph Mateka is here. Ralph, good morning. So today is a continuation of the work in the commissions, people talking about policy, people talking about delivery. What are some of the concerns that in your view should come up in these conversations?
You know, we are observing what has happened in government the past few years. I think that we should be careful not to always emphasize much on the grand talk about policy. The reason being that when I look at what happened, actually I think we have had challenges even before we implemented policy. I think the bigger problem lies actually at that pre-implementation phase. For example, look at the question of education is one of the things that will be talked about. My concern with education is that we fail even before we come to implementation of the education policy. The question of the books, for example, is it a policy matter or not? For me, it's a simple question of the capacity of the bureaucracy to even implement policies, because if we are not careful, we are going to come up with grand policies, and such policies we will not sustain the implementation to an extent where we can even say that now we've implemented this, let us evaluate them. Usually we go not even a quarter way through implementation of policy. The bigger job now that needs to be done, it's about the bureaucracy.
When you say capacity, sorry to interject, when you say capacity of the bureaucracy, does this mean the skills of the people in the bureaucracy to work, or is it the numbers of the bureaucracy? Is it the structure? Where does capacity speak to?
It goes both to the capacity in terms of the numbers and also how it is being structured as well. And the skills, the technical know-how of people who are involved. There are areas where you could say that someone just need to do their job. It's not a policy issue. It's just a simple question of showing up. And I think that talks to the ethics in the public service.
So what should the delegates say here? What should they say about ethics in the public service, people showing up, structure of the bureaucracy? What should they be saying?
They need to come up with a framework where there are going to be consequences in the public service. Those who do not show up to work, lack of discipline when it comes to public servants doing their duties, that has to be looked at, you know, along their discussions of policy, I think.
Yeah. What are some of the other issues? I mean, capacity of the bureaucracy to deliver on promises undertaken. What about the capacity of the bureaucracy, job creation? Most of the time, people looking for jobs, they look to the state to say, unblock this, unlock that, enable this, create this kind of scope and opportunity. What should be said about that here?
Again, when it comes to the question of job creation, you look at the work that has been done by the National Planning Commission, for example, that we need the public service that is quite able. We cannot lose an opportunity where we spend a lot of money in the public service, then we have a lax attitude in the public service. If we are going to convince the private sector to work hard in tandem with government in creating jobs, the public service has to operate to 100% capacity. We spend a lot of money in the public service through your expanded public works program, but a lot of it goes to waste. We need to tie down on accountability as well. We need to work on a sense of, we need to say that we cannot lose any cent in the public service, because as we speak, the global environment is such that we do not have much leeway to create jobs in the private sector. So
that means dealing with corruption as well?
Exactly, very much important. People should not go into the public service knowing that, no, I just want to park there, there is nothing that's been done. We need to have excellence in the public service. We need to drive that.
Ralph Mateka, thank you very much. Ralph Mateka is a political analyst with some insight about some of the deliberations as they affect the state bureaucracy and what should be said inside there. Thank you very much to you for the insights you've provided us on Twitter, and just regrettably we couldn't read all of them. I do hope that you were able to find expression with us here on Morning Live on SABC2. It's been a beautiful broadcast. You agree with me? There's been Leanne, there's been Liepollo, there's been Ayanda, there's been Andile. I mean, this has been a beautiful broadcast here on Morning Live. I'm not discriminating against the gents. I'm just saying there was Amwe 8 Sendang Javier, and of course our show producer Notando Maseko Dibalantoni. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to leave you with a clip of the incoming Deputy President of the African National Congress, Cyril Ramaphosa. We'll see you again tomorrow. Leanne will take it further from here after this. From me, Mintero Yabulabula, Maitabasa, Shap Shap.
Well, there you go. Some highlights from yesterday, just taking a look at when Cyril Ramaphosa was announced as the Deputy President of the ANC, taking that position. And I think one could call it absolute jubilation by those that have gathered in there. Well, this morning also taking a look at a lot of analysis and also looking at just some of the articles that are coming out. It seems that there is really great optimism that Cyril Ramaphosa is now the Deputy President of the ANC, and looking forward what that will do to South Africa, and particularly when it comes to the business image of South Africa. I think many are very, very optimistic about that. Well, Mbongeni Ngema is our guest now on Morning Live. Let me just find out if we're taking a break first or if we're going straight to chat to him. No break. We're going to be talking to him, which I'm looking forward to. On Friday, renowned playwright and musician Mbongeni Ngema will launch his latest production in Durban. It's called Siyagia. Now, the music extravaganza basically is coinciding with President Jacob Zuma's victory in Mangaung, and the headline acts will include Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, Freshly Ground. There's just a few of the names that are going to be performing. From our Durban studio, let's welcome the maestro himself, Mbongeni. It's good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure. Listen, how is the mood in Durban following the victory of, now again, the ANC president, Jacob Zuma?
Well, as much expected, there's so much celebration down here, and there's going to be celebrations all week, culminating with a big musical extravaganza that I'm putting on, Siyagia, and way into the new year. The comrades are celebrating in Durban, and we very much expected this to happen.
All right, now tell us about Siyagia. What is it all about?
It is a celebration of cultural diversity, a potpourri of our cultures, our music in South Africa and in the African continent as a whole. We have got myself performing, and I'm directing the show. Mpumi Kumete, my wife, is the choreographer. We've got Freshly Ground, we've got Afro Soul, Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, Oma Wumi from Nigeria, Poloja from Swaziland, we've got John Silulwane from Botswana, and many Soul Brothers are going to be celebrating with us. It's going to be a big celebration at Westridge Park Stadium here in Durban this Friday, the 21st.
In terms of ticket sales, how's it looking? Are they still available at this point?
Tickets are still available. They are very, very hot. It's going to be a whole day affair starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then at 8 o'clock to 12 midnight, we will have this non-stop, wall-to-wall music. It's an extravaganza. It is directed and choreographed as a big Broadway musical, which will feature all these stars that I have mentioned.
So we're calling this basically the inaugural Siyagia. Will there be more after this? I mean, obviously, depending on the success of this one, but is it something that you are wanting to continue and perhaps make it into an annual event?
Yes, it's going to happen every year in December in Durban. This is the inaugural one. Next year, we will have an even bigger one. We intend to include all genres, including theater, including all forms of music. We have got Indian dancers, we've got Bollywood-style dancing that is going to be taking place this year. But we also are going to be including fashion as the years go by, as well as food. In the end, we expect it to be a long week activity.
Now, I know that there's support from the SABC as well, and SABC One is one of your partners. Will this event be broadcast at all?
We are hoping that with the SABC One, we shall broadcast it, film it, and then broadcast it in the new year.
Good. Well, we can only hope so.
And as you can see in the picture, the little 11-year-old Butlali, winner of South Africa's Got Talent, is also a poet of the day on Friday.
That's fantastic. We look forward to seeing her. I can only imagine that that's going to be one of the highlights. You've also got some of the NBA champs that are going to be there.
NBA champions, yes, the Istatamia group are going to be there. There will be the only two Statamia groups, Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, and NBA champions.
Lovely.
That will be there this year.
No, I know that there are some acts that are from outside of South Africa, like the ones from Nigeria. Just talk to us about this.
She's fantastic. Oma Wumi, she is going to be a big star, I think, in the continent, in the footsteps of Angelique Kidjo, I think. We worked together yesterday, and in the rehearsal room, she is absolutely phenomenal. And she is very, very well known in Nigeria.
Wonderful. Talk to us about ticket prices, how much are they going for, and just some of those other details.
The ticket prices range from 150 Rand, and then you've got seats at 250 Rands. Then you've got the VVIP area at 450 Rand. And we actually expect President Jacob Zuma himself to grace the occasion on Friday, including the top leading delegation, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, Premier of KZN, who's now going to be in the national echelon of the ANC, to be there on Friday.
Well, that's amazing. Well, that was the question I was going to ask you. Will the president be there himself? Will he be there during the evening's performance? Is it a confirmed appearance? Definitely going to be there.
Well, we're working on it.
Okay.
Working hard on it, but you know, it's time to party. After Mangaung, everybody wants to come to Siagia.
Well, listen, congratulations, and I wish you all the best with a great, successful concert. So there you have it. Those are the details. Go to CompuTicket. You can get your ticket, 150 Rand to 450. It's the Siagia Durban International Music and Cultural Carnival 2012, the inaugural one, and hopefully there'll be many more many more of these. And Mbongeni and Gemma, the brains behind this. Thank you for chatting to us about this. All right, now before we go to our news bulletin, we got a special message from Santa Claus. He called on leaders around the world to work for peace in 2013.
SIBC1 and committed artists present Siagia Music Extravaganza featuring Mbongeni Ngema, Jimmy Duldu, Ladysmith Black Mambazo, Zonke, Thandiso Mazwai, Oma Wami, Freshly Ground, Sfiso Ncwane, Soul Brothers and many more. 21st December, West Ridge Park Stadium, Durban. Book at CompuTicket.
Quickly. Well, it certainly was not a message from Santa Claus or Father Christmas on this day, but that was rather just a promo of the festival that we were talking about. Let's give you the final news bulletin here on Morning Live. Delegates at the ANC's elective conference in Mangaung will today be voting for the members of the National Executive Committee. Nominations from the floor ended early last night. A total of 295 people were nominated, but only 80 will make it to the final list. Half of them have to be women. The vote for NEC members follows yesterday's re-election of party president Jacob Zuma. He will go to the 2014 polls with Cyril Ramaphosa as his deputy. Zuma urged unity and mutual respect within party ranks.
Thank you, comrades.
4 far right-wingers will return to court on the 8th of January for a bail application. They face charges of high treason after appearing in the Bloemfontein Regional Court yesterday. The court heard plans to bomb the ANC's Mangaung conference and execute the president as well as cabinet ministers. It was to have coincided with the 16th of December when the Battle of Blood River took place. More arrests are expected. The state will oppose bail for the accused. Police witness Brigadier Zephania Mkhwanazi is expected to be cross-examined again today at the Marikani Commission of Inquiry hearing in Rustenburg. Mkhwanazi has spent several days in the witness stand to testify about issues around police operational plans and the deployment of specialized units. The commission is probing events that led to the death of more than 40 people during violent strikes by Lonmin mine workers in August. A full bench of judges in the Western Cape High Court are expected to make a ruling on an urgent application by 18 schools in the province. The schools want the court to set aside a decision by the Provincial Education Department to close them down by year end. The department says dwindling pupil numbers and underperformance forced the move, but counsel for the schools argued that the consultation process that led to the decision was flawed. 2 days have been set aside for the application. Right, that brings us to the end of the news for this morning. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And, of course, I hope you enjoyed the coverage that we brought you from Mangaung. And this will continue tomorrow again. Until 9 o'clock, we'll be broadcasting tomorrow morning. And also, good luck to ex-Miss South Africa, Melinda Baum, taking place in the Miss Universe pageant tonight. Certainly looking like one of the favourites, so we wish her all the best. The pageant will be at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we'll be getting some results tomorrow as we broadcast on Morning Live. Let's leave you with these visuals from Bloemfontein. God bless you all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Travel safely if you're traveling today. Shop from all of us here in Johannesburg.